So you can see here is a half wall, here's a regular wall. Here's a half wall insert, here's a regular wall insert. Versus down here, you can see the half wall, regular wall, half wall insert, uh, or full wall insert, half wall insert. So it gives it kind of a neat kind of like varied appearance, I think. I think this look right here I think is probably the best. I just think it looks super cool with the pillar and the arch and this wall knocked out down here, right? Because that's actually like a busted wall that I flipped upside down so people could walk through it. Um, I think that's just really cool, right? So you can have guys like use the door down like that. I think that's pretty neat. So I like that view a lot. Um, but yeah, and then this is the same grading as the one that's down there, and then I just cut the grading out so people can move through that wall. I thought that was kind of fun. This area I wish maybe it was a little bit more open, maybe, but it'll do for now. And if I want to, I can always take more chunks of this out, more chunks of the walkway out. Um, that might be something I end up doing, something like this there. So this ends up being like a tiny walkway here, and kind of like two kind of like balls, and then a tiny walkway between them. Something I might end up doing. We'll see how it goes. Oh, first off, I can always do that later. First off, we got to get some paint on this sucker. So we're going to be using garbage craft store paints, like Walmart paints. So I'm just going to be using what I got. Um, so this is dark gray. And we're pretty much just going to be dry brushing for the first off. Now, the base, the tiles on the bottom, I don't want those to be gray in the end. But they're okay for now if they end up being gray. So, yeah, just swirling my brush around because the intent is to get it kind of dry brushy. All right. And then we're just going to start going through everything. Oh, that is a lot streakier than I was expecting, I'll tell you what. So, obviously pretty heavy dry brush, or overbrush, I guess. Just trying to get gray onto everything. That is a very smeary paint. Was not expecting that, to be honest. So yeah, so pretty much painting this the same way I did the other one, where we do a lot of it with dry brushing and overbrushing. Except the other one kind of started from a brown base. Um, Now generally stone you don't want to just paint gray. You want it to have some other colors on it too. But since the other death cube is so brown, I wanted to avoid doing brown on this one. I wanted them to be more visually distinct than that from each other, right? Um, yeah, not a super big fan of this paint, to be honest. But it's not bad, and I think it'll look okay once I get some other colors on top of it. This is just going to be our first coat of gray. There will be many more. In varying degrees of dry brush. And I'm also going to do the tiles, because what we're going to do after we do the tiles is I'm probably going to go back and hit them with a contrast paint to darken them down. Not because gray tile is bad or anything like that, but because, I pretty much really only war game with myself these days on stream. That's pretty much the only time I play war games. So, you know, I like to consider like how the stream will look, right? I say as the stream looks terrible at the moment, but I do like to consider that when I'm making these things. And I notice with my Dead Man's Hand stuff that when the board was very light, it reflected light back really bad. So since then, I've purposely been trying to do darker colored bases for my minis and darker colored bases for my terrain. It's one of the reasons in the Death Cube, the tiles in the Death Cube are painted dark, even if the rest of it's kind of rusty metal. The tiles are like a darker color. That's one of the reasons there. So, but yeah, you can see with this overbrush, I don't want to get it in the crevices because this will get a wash, but it'll get a nicer look if we can keep a lot of it out of the crevices. So. But if some gets in the crevices, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Like I said, there will be many a color after this, so just the start of our Death Cube. I'm very disappointed with how like streaky this paint is, though. Maybe it's because the bottle says gloss. Maybe it's because there's actually a little bit of varnish in this. Maybe that's why it's so streaky. Really, we should be using a matte paint, but this is what I got. So, and we're gonna be putting so many layers on top of it, and a varnish at the end that like a little bit of gloss in the base coat. You're never gonna see it. And honestly, it might actually make the paint stick better, to be completely honest. So, because gloss varnish is much stronger than just regular than much stronger than matte varnish. It has something to do with whatever like chemical goes into the varnish that does that. Um, I don't super mega understand it, but ah, yeah, it does make it much stronger a paint. So, come on. Thank you. So I'm going to show you my amazing palette. Behold, Froggy palette. Since I'm using this like big dumb paint from Walmart. Um, Something like Froggy palette works really well. And by Froggy palette, I mean this paper plate that looks like a frog. That is not my palette. Just because I need such a large quantity of paint, right? That like I just kind of need to slap it on, you know? So while I want to do a nice job with this initial base coat of gray, there are so many layers coming later that like I'm not mega gonna worry about coverage, right? This is just kind of trying to get them parties started, you know? And apologies, you probably can't see super well everything I'm doing because it's actually really hard to paint this. Um, Yeah, some of the areas are super hard to reach. They won't be bad to play in, but they're very hard to get a brush into. That's for sure. Like this area down in there, oh my god, that's really fucking hard to get with the brush. But that's also another benefit of really heavy, kind of messy overbrush. Right? Like, if I was trying to paint this perfectly, I would be having an aneurysm trying to get paint down here. And that's not what hobby's about. Froggy plate. Yep, I like froggy plate. I'm happy they still sell these stupid animal plates. I buy them at Walmart every time I go. They're actually shockingly useful for painting. Because they're large and they have like a, they have kind of a laminate coating on them. So they don't really absorb the paint. You get like a whole pack of them for like $5. They just throw them away when you're done. You discard the frog once you have used him. You can start to see some of the dry here. It's a little, probably a little darker than I was hoping for my first coat, to be honest, but that's fine. It's giving us a base. And the next ones were going to be more dry brush-y, so honestly, if we wind up with a little bit darker stone than originally intended, I don't think there's anything bad with that. And then this whole thing is going to get a wash afterwards. Now I'm trying to figure out right now if I want to do oil wash again, like I did with the first, with the Sci-Fi Death Cube, or if I want to do an acrylic wash and just make it myself. Because oil washes look really nice and they allow you to control how much stuff gets like blurred, I guess, or like tainted by the oil wash. That's a really big nicety of them. But like, they also take ludicrous amounts of time to dry. Oil washes do. Because the first level of drying in an oil wash is actually evaporation. And you're waiting for the spirits to evaporate off of your wash. So once that happens, the next part of drying an oil wash is actually a light base. It's actually a light base cure. It's not actually dry. So because of that, they need to be in real sunlight. And it can just take a while. When I started the Death Cube, the first level took forever to dry because of that. Because that was during the Kona low storms here in Hawaii. So everything was overcast and rainy. Um, yeah, she's coming along though, that's for sure. Coming along. So some of these areas like here, I actually extended this platform with an extra piece so it would have extra room for models to stand and stuff. I just thought it was kind of fun. Oh, so if you want to do a realistic stone, you probably really shouldn't just do grays. You should be doing some tans and some browns and some greens and stuff like that. And kind of mixing all that together. Um, but I like the like fantasy, like Diablo style crypt, right? That's kind of what I wanted to go for here. Oh, are you not glued in, my friend? Interesting. Okay, let's fix that. Wasn't expecting that. I guess I just set this in there and then forgot to glue it in. For a big project like this, you want a paste of water, like you want a brush on glue for some of it, and you want a drippable glue. But you don't want one that dries instantly. Because after you put it on, you need to manipulate it still. So you want one that stays wet for at least a little bit. All right, so that was Mr. Hobby plastic model, Mr. Cement. That's what that was, and it works really good for this. Um, I would try to avoid the Tamiya extra thin because it dries so quickly. Um, that honestly, I think it would make something like this harder because it would dry so quick on you as you're working with it. So you can see everything. I'm just hitting the areas again. Probably shouldn't be because it'll. Once there's more than one color, there will be enough coverage, but. Yeah, just been feeling like fantasy game time, so I figured Fantasy Death Cube was a good call right now to work on. So I have all my one-page rules stuff from the Broken Truth box to finish. I was super mega excited to work on that, and then I painted up 3 models, and they were great. But man, my fucking energy tanked really hard. Um, and I have them all behind me, primed, ready to rock, and they would not be super hard to paint, but oof, yeah, painting a whole army right now is a little much. Super low on energy at the moment. So that's for one of the benefits of the Death Cube. It makes it so much easier to like set up and play, and so much easier to stream it that like it's made. I mean, it's essentially enabled me to actually play games on the channel again, which is really nice, and have the energy for that, which is nice. It seems stupid to be like, oh, you don't have the energy for the things you want to do. It's like, motherfucker, I don't get to pick what I have energy for. It's I don't know, weird situation. Being a broken person and still having to like go to work and stuff, right? 'Cause, like even if I have other stuff I want to do, I have to make sure I have enough to still do things like go to work and kind of maintain just existence, which can be a challenge in itself. So, all right, we are making the progress. and kind of a streaky gray stone everywhere. So. Alright, let's see. Almost done with the top layer. Oh, almost done with the top layer. You're getting there. I say immediately as I start painting the bottom layer. Sorry, I'm just kind of be super honest. I'm just kind of running with where my brain's going. We need to finish painting the top. Oh, you guys aren't gonna be able to see any of that probably. But yeah, this is all fairly normal, like gray stone terrain painting stuff. One of the things to think about with this, though, is that because we are using this gray base, does mean we should probably avoid some other colors. So there's like these gratings here and stuff like that. And normally my first instinct would be to do those in silver, but we're actually going to avoid silver for those. Because it's going to be a very similar color, like silver and gray. So instead, we're going to be doing those in a brown iron color. So that they stand out a little bit more. Oh. Ooh, that was a lot. Yeah, this paint will take a century to dry if you leave it around too thick. But if you hit it with the brush, it dries relatively quick. Like thin it out. I mean, she'll dry pretty quick then. So the Death Cube, I specifically kind of wanted to be like a dry kind of environment. This one I'm actually thinking about doing like moss and like plants and stuff like that. Maybe it's getting old, but like I really like flocking and stuff now. I think it's cool. So like there's definitely the urge in my brain to be like, you know, we're gonna have moss and grasses and it's gonna be overrun. And, you know, even though probably leaving it leaving it without that stuff is probably the better thing to do. Because then it's more versatile, right? I could put like a ancient Egypt thing on top and it would be fine, or I could put like a frozen city on top, like Frostgrave. Although to be honest, I've never played Frostgrave like in Falstad, I think it's the name of the city in Frostgrave. Um, I've never done any of the weather stuff. Partly because I live in a tropical place, so doing like cold stuff feels a little weird. Um, Back when I was in a place that had all the seasons, I used to love all the kind of wintry stuff. Um, it just feels kind of weird now, being in a place that's essentially perpetually like perfect summer all year round. Um, so if you notice, that's why almost none of my minis have snow bases and stuff like that. So just I don't know. It's a thing that feels like kind of out of place for me now, I guess. Tilt her up on the edge a little bit. And get some of these walls here. I could go through and pick out specific stones, um, with like tan or something. And that might give a good bit of like color variation because we do have these sections here that are very kind of like masonry kind of work, right? The end result from that could end up being looking too complicated though, which is what I would worry about. Because you always want your train to look good, but you also kind of want your train to not be the focus whenever you're doing stuff. You want it to be the cool looking background, not the main attraction, you know? And that's always a hard line to walk, right? So I'm thinking about, you know, how I would paint these bricks to make them look the best, right? And what it would be is I would pick out some in certain colors, like say a tan or like maybe a very bluey kind of stone color, um, like kind of like a slate kind of blue, and then they would all get a unifying wash, like a unifying like kind of brown wash on top of that, and then they would all get a unifying dry brush, and that would probably make them look the best, but it would also make them a lot more complicated and like drawing your eye as a user. Um, and then I'm also, because this whole thing isn't matching that same stone style, I wouldn't be able to carry that around to other places as well. So, there would be other parts on this model that wouldn't be able to have that. So, um, that would be something else to consider too, right? Like how much of that is actually carried around entirely, Like, because I don't want to do a thing where like one wall is like Technicolor and everything else is just pure gray, right? Like if I do it in one spot, I want it to also move around the model. Because like I could do it here, right, where you can see all these individual bricks. I can't do it here because it's just a couple big bricks. It just wouldn't work. But yeah, you can just see I'm still doing just that heavy overbrush. We are almost entirely done though for this step, which is good. Um, just got a couple more walls to hit, and then You're pretty much good to move on to the next gray after that. The next gray is going to be more of a dry brush, so, because it's a more lighter kind of gray. Let's see. Okay. Whew. Honest, my fucking arm's getting tired from all the wiggle woggling. Let's see. I'm gonna get back in there. There. Well, it's honestly going to be the hardest part to paint this whole thing. Whew, all right. Okay. So we got to get inside this little room here. Hmm. I gotta do the lower little room on the other side. And then our first coat is good after that. It's gonna have a kind of a dark gray everywhere, which is pretty awesome. I think before we do any of the details, we'll want to do one more dry brush gray. And then we can start looking at painting in some details. Now, there's actually not a ton of details in this set versus the other Death Cube, which had like wires and lights and panels and all this kind of stuff. This is very gray, gray, gray. There's not very I didn't put in any parts that have kind of big complicated details like that. However, I do have all of these little relief areas, and what I'm planning on doing is filling these with candles that I'm going to try sculpting out of green stuff. So probably will not get to that today, but my goal is to fill these all with candles. All the little relief areas here, like skulls and that kind of stuff, like kind of dungeony kind of dressing stuff. That's my goal with those areas. It's one of the reasons I tried to incorporate them kind of around everywhere. So they could get just, I don't know, a little pop of color somewhere, like, there's like a blue candle or something in the corner, right? Just, or maybe the candles are white and all the flames are like, I don't know, like dark green or something. Yeah, but just something so it can have some more kind of like pop of color that kind of is just all over the place. Um, I've never tried sculpting candles and green stuff though, so we'll see how that goes. Um, to be honest, 90% of what you use green stuff for is sculpting junk on models. Like, oh, this rat man needs a huge pair of balls. All right, I can do that. Uh, Give me 1 second. Hello. I had plumbers come to my house on Friday to look at maybe replacing some water, and one of them left something here, so he's coming to pick it up. And he was just calling me to see if I was home and if he could stop by, which is fine. Ugh. So we might have to take a couple-minute break once he gets here, but it's fine. We'll be back. I want to at least get all the base coats and stuff done on this today. I'm gonna definitely stream long enough to do that. Right? I want to get like the basics of this paint job done at the very least. So another fun thing about this is that because this is like a crypt and the top level is flat and not like pre-built like it is with the other Death Cube, I'll be able to switch this terrain around that goes on top. So it'll be able to go from like a Mordheim style like destroyed city to like a forest and just kind of like walk around these different options like that. I think that's pretty sweet. Um, so like this could be like maybe the ruins that a bunch of goblins have set up on, and I could do like a goblin camp on top of it. Or maybe this is the ruins under like a, I don't know, like a big dwarven city, and I could do some dwarven terrain, something like that. So one of the things that kind of motivated me to do this is the idea of getting to still use my like cool other terrain that I've made, but only having to like do like a foot by a foot of it, right? Like I don't need to build an entire table because this thing is only a foot wide, so and it's only going to be like the top level. So majority of the table is kind of predetermined, and then it's going to be um, what goes into it that makes it kind of the environment there. Get in there though. Almost done with this step, which is pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Maybe we'll give this a minute to dry and I'll look at maybe sculpting some candles. We'll see how that looks. Maybe. Just making sure everything's got this gray on it. I didn't miss anywhere, you know. Since this is my base coat, I do want to make sure there is some on pretty much everything. Like that. That pillar back there definitely needs some more. It's basically just black. There we go. Woo, doggy. Let's see, miss anything in there? Not really. Always keep in mind that when you're painting, when a paint is wet, it reflects more light back to your eyes, so you think it looks brighter. So that's one of the reasons why your paints will always get darker. So yeah, she's definitely come along though. You got a nice kind of gray stone everywhere now. All right, I think that's pretty much coat number 1 done. Oh shit, look at this. This wall right there. I missed. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now we're done. Go team. All right. Well, that's our first base coat done on this sucker. You can kind of see she is looking good and gray and stony. So let's give her like 5 minutes. And while she does that, okay. Let's look at my blueberry ghosts for a minute. Alright, so this is a blueberry ghost. He's delicious. He's still a little dusty because of sheep, you know. But you can see his candles there, right? These are 3D printed candles. I guess they really aren't that big. I could 3D print more candles. And just put them in there. The thing with sculpting my own is I don't know if I can get... Like, I can sculpt the candle, obviously, but I don't think I can get the little flame on it. I don't think I'll be able to sculpt that. That looks well. So maybe it's better if I just sculpt or print the candles and maybe get a little bit of green stuff and make it look like wax is dripping down then maybe. Uh, that's probably the better option, to be honest. That's probably the good call there, to do it that way instead. I'll take a little bit of green stuff, make it kind of look like it's dripping down, stick some of the 3D printed candles right in it. And then I can paint the candles up like they're white or something like that, and then do the flames in a color, like blue or something. Yeah, and I think that'll work really well. All right, let's see. What's our next color? Our next color is elephant gray. So it's a little bit of lighter gray. Um, It is more of a cool gray. You can see the big difference right there, right? So you can see this one's kind of more of a warm with brown, and this one's more of a bluish kind of gray. And this one we're actually going to dry brush. So I'm going to get some of this on my brush. On there. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get some of it off my brush. And then we're going to start just going around. And you can tell I am not very good at dry brushing. Like at all. It's like the simplest technique, but man, I'm really bad at it. Maybe this will give me some little bit more skill, maybe, or not. Probably not. Can you even see that is my question once it dries. All right, we'll use up the rest of the paint we got out, and we'll just keep. I think the thing is I never pull enough paint off the brush. I think that's my problem with dry brushing. That's why every time I try to dry brush, it becomes like a overbrush. I'm gonna be super honest. I don't think you're gonna be able to see that for shit, just because of how similar these colors actually are. Even though one is very clearly much lighter and cooler than the other, I don't think you're gonna notice that. I think if wow, that was really bad. I think if anything, it's just gonna make it look like just more gray. So we might need to break out some hobby paints, which is fine. Yeah, because I don't think you're going to see this at all. And I've just fallen back to overbrushing again because I suck at dry brushing so bad. Can you actually see that? No, it just looks like better coverage of gray. That's all it does. Which, I mean, it's not bad looking, that's for sure. Yeah, it looks good. It just looks like better coverage of gray, that's all. Maybe I'll go through it, I'll hit all like a couple of sections more with it. Because like any like, I'll be super honest, any like super subtle variation, well, it's nice in miniature painting, um, because I'm going to hit this with a wash of some kind, you're just not going to see it in the end. If there's like a crazy subtle variation. So yeah, it just looks like better coverage gray. Which, I mean, is not bad, but I wanted it to stand out a little more, I think. So, yeah. I think we definitely got to switch over to some hobby paint. And maybe actually do something like a white almost, to be honest, so that we can get it kind of more kind of called out. I have one called Spaceship Gray, I think, or Company Gray. Maybe we'll try that out. And actually try to dry brush more this time versus more whatever the hell I'm doing here, more over brushing again. And maybe we'll try actually dry brushing again. Yeah. These spots are really hard to get, man. Actually, you actually can see it. You actually can actually see it. But the variation is very subtle. But I've still got paint on the brush, or on Mr. Froggy palette, so we'll keep using it for now. Because Mr. Froggy's still got the paint, we'll keep going. Worst case, it just adds a little more variation when we break out the next color. And to be totally honest, I'm trying to get the hang of dry brushing a little bit more. I don't know why I've always been so bad at dry brushing, but I really have been. I think I just never pull enough paint off the brush, maybe. Maybe I'm not like gentle enough, maybe. And it's one of these things I'm just really, really bad at, but it's such a simple technique, and it really adds a whole lot. And I do so many washes and stuff. You'd think I would be good at it for dry brushing the miniatures afterwards, because it makes washes and stuff look so much better. But I'm really not. I'm just fucking terrible. So we'll give her another gander here in a second, see what we can do. We'll try out that company gray I mentioned. Actually, that's actually not bad. I actually kind of like that. But I think it might just be the fact that I like better gray coverage than what we had. More so than I like this color specifically. I think I could have just done another coat of the other color and just been happy with it as well. So, but yeah, I mean, you can actually see it. Like, you can actually see it, so. I don't know. I don't know. Alright, well, let's break out the actual hobby paints. It'll give us a wider variety of tones, and we can break out a darker one. Or a lighter one, I mean. And then we got to figure out what we're going to do for the tiles themselves too, because they kind of have highlighting now, but I do want them to be black. Well, not black, but dark. Sorry, I'm looking for paints. I'll be back in a sec. All right, let's see. All right, let's see. Let's see. So this is the company gray. This is what we're gonna try next for dry brushing. This is a cultist cloak. I think I'm gonna try this on one of the tiles and see how I like it. Or maybe I'll just do all the tiles in dark tone before it gets its wash. So it'll have like a pre dark tone before the wash happens. So all right, let's try some actual dry brushing with company gray. Okay, let's see. Still over brushing, but doing better. We're doing better. Still over brushing though, but doing better for sure than we were. What do we think of that color? Do we like that? I think it looks neat, to be honest. I think it gives a really cool bit of variation that I think is going to show up really well under the wash. Yeah, like I think that looks neat. I think the variation in that looks cool. All right, let's do a little more, see what we think of it. Um, and then we'll try out that occultist cloak on one of the tiles. Oop, shit, that was a lot. Still definitely not fully dry brushing. We get to dry brushing every now and then, but it takes me a little bit of over brushing first, to be totally honest. And I think that just means I'm not getting enough paint off my brush slash not being gentle enough, I think is what that means. But I do think it looks nice. It's giving it some nice variation in the gray that I think's still gonna stay after the wash. But probably not gonna get to the wash today. Um, just because this is going to need a little bit to sit. Otherwise, the oil wash is going to pull it up. Okay, give me 2 minutes and I will be back. The guy that forgot his stuff is here. I will be back. All right, now I'm back. Plumber is handled. I am back to dry brushing gray. Honestly, I think I've been looking at gray too much. I don't know if anything that I'm doing is making a difference now. I think I've just been looking at it too long. To be totally honest. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use up the rest of the gray that's on my palette, that's on Mr. Froggy right now, and then I think we'll actually try we'll try looking at colors for the tiles. Because yeah, I think I've hit my saturation on gray, and it does tell me that the wash I'm going to have to use is definitely going to have to be a brown based wash, not just a black based wash, just so I can get a little more brown color in here. Now, as I mentioned at the start, you probably should start doing gray stone with not gray. Like maybe do it with, tan and then brown and stuff like that. Um, so I would highly recommend that instead. But let's try mess with them tiles a little bit. See what we can get. That'll do. Okay. All right. So this is a cultist cloak. We're gonna try this out on one of the tiles and at least see what she looks like. Because since all the wargaming I do is by myself on the channel, like getting that to work is the most important thing to me. So having this light ground is going to reflect all the light back into the camera, and it's going to be really annoying. You probably actually can already see it happening now. Everything's probably getting a little bit blurred out from the white background already. I really noticed it in my Dead Man's Hand stuff, because that has a really bright white, or like bright kind of sandy color battle mat to it. So that's where I really noticed it. But as I stick my finger in paint, gross. Yeah. Oh, this is a lot more purple than I thought it would be. Oh. Hmm. 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 I feel like purple is the wrong way to go there. Because it does have a slight purple. It really does have a slight purple tinge to it. Which makes it a really cool looking paint. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff I could do with that. What does one look like if we just do it in dark tone? What I'll do is I'll just use a couple tiles as tests. Because I swore I had one called like Basilicanum Gray or something like that. I can't find that one. Yeah, I don't see it. But I swore that's the one I used for for the actual, for the other Death Cube space. I swore it was like Basilicanum Gray or something. Alright, so this guy's a wash. He is going to color it down, but it's not going to color it down as much as I would like. Yeah, that will darken it down. Let's give it a sec. I'll see if I can find that other paint real quick. Ah, Gravelord Gray. That's what it's called. There we go. So we'll try that one too. And we can kind of compare them and see which one we like. Oh yeah, that one's way darker. I do like that though. You can still see the details underneath, but it is like a darker kind of tile. Yeah, not gonna lie, I like that a lot. I think that's pretty sweet. All right, we're gonna give all those a minute to dry. And while it does, we're gonna grab rubber palette instead of froggy palette. And we're going to break out. Did I not just grab it? There it is. No, it's death metal. I don't want death metal. I want rough iron. There it is. Death metal is an amazing color, by the way, but I literally do everything in death metal. So if you're curious, this is death metal. This is rough iron. Death metal is a kind of more coppery, kind of green color. This is a more like browny metal color. And what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to paint in all the metal. Now, there are a whole bunch more pieces for this that are metal if you want to use them. I specifically didn't pick them. Instead, I thought that the metal bits we're going to do are just going to be things like the grating and stuff like that. But there are like metal walls and like things that are like clearly reinforced and that kind of stuff. Um, Also, because I don't know what kind of like time period it's just like a fantasy thing. I didn't want to have stuff like big heavy metal doors because maybe the sci-fi or the fantasy world like doesn't have that. You know what I mean? Like even this one here has like kind of bolts on it, and they're a little sci-fi looking for my taste, for my fantasy. So yeah, all these Saucerman Studio things, they're all fantastic. You do get lots and lots of cool variation and stuff. So even if I don't like the ones that had all the bolts and stuff, like I said, I built this whole board without using those, so that's just a testament to how many cool pieces there are. Sweet. Maybe I'll dry brush some more gray on here. I don't know. You can really see it in some spots, like right here. Right, like you can kind of really see the like more one side of the wall that I hit. But at the same time, to be honest, the variation's kind of cool. And to be honest, I feel like I've just looked at gray too much already. I can't give a honest evaluation of the gray right now. Painting these is gonna suck. Now you could like sub-assembly this kind of death cube thing. Because really these terrain pieces, they're meant to be modular, so you're meant to print a bunch out and then build your table when you go to play. But honestly, I love the modular terrain, but it does take a whole bunch more energy that I, being a very broken person, don't often have. So having it pre-built and kind of like a playset like this just really works really well for me. Right? Like I honestly don't know if I would have managed to get a game in if I hadn't built the death cubes. And if one page rules didn't exist, because the rule set is so simple. Although, to be honest, building this, I would actually really like to try Torch and Shield. Um, so it might be a situation where, like, we play Torch and Shield, but with one page rules. For anyone that doesn't know, Torch and Shield is a dwarf, mining game, or delving game, I guess. Delving, I guess, is probably the correct term. Where you take a group of dwarves and you go down and like try to do dwarf stuff. So like very like Mines of Moria. Um, but the fun thing about the game is that it has this really neat light mechanic where in the darkness, um, shit'll grab you, right? And it will like try to like drag you off the board, and like if your homie gets dragged off the board, he fucking gone. Um, and I think that's pretty cool. I really like the kind of the theme of that of like having dudes like legitimately having to worry about like losing someone in the game because they got dragged off into the darkness. Like I think that's kind of cool. Right? Because lots of times when your guys die, it's a post-game roll kind of thing. Like they got knocked out in the game. Okay, you know that sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Um, I think the idea of them actually dying in the game, I think, is kind of cool. So that's what I'm thinking about doing. And what I think I'll do is I think I'll do one Star Quest hero, not Star Quest, one Fantasy Quest hero, and I will also just have some regular like shaft units with my guy. Because I made up a whole bunch of stuff to play Frostgrave recently. Well, the end of last year I did. Um, and I was really enjoying playing Frostgrave on those dungeon tiles that I got from, oh, what are they called? Archon, the dungeon thing. The dungeon tile set they have is really nice too, but it does take a bunch to set up. But at the same time, you can break it all down and it goes literally into like a shoebox, and that's amazing. Like if I didn't have a dedicated hobby room, that's probably the only kind of terrain I'd be able to have, to be honest. Just because something like the dungeon cube here, right? Like it only works because I can essentially keep it set up. Um, if I didn't have the room to like just kind of keep it around, like it'd definitely get kind of crappy, or it'd just be like a big pain in the tail, you know. There we go. And yeah, so you can see why I chose not to do this in silver. Because you do just want a slightly different splash of color here and there. And when we're done with this, we can look at the floor tiles and see how they look. Okay. All right, so that's all the metal parts done. All right, what do we think for the floor tiles? That 100% that looks really good. I like that a lot. Um, yeah, that's fantastic. I like that. Uh, so you know what? Let's do the floor. Might as well, right? Now I'm just going to put this over those. What you really probably should do is repaint these two tiles with the original color. Um, that red does need to get out of there though. What? All right, let me at least repaint that one. All right. Yeah, that took what, a second? Yeah. All right. Now let's get dangerous. Ugh. All right, we're going to basically fill this up, Gravelord Gray. All right, and then we're just going to start walking around, fit in the different pieces. All right, and we are going to kind of brush it out a little as we go, because that's going to create a bunch of nice variation for us in the color, where some spots are darker and some spots are lighter. And it's going to look pretty sweet, to be honest. All right, so we're not looking for like 100% perfect coverage, but what we want is pretty much exactly this. We pretty much exactly want this like, that one I need to move so I don't grab it by accident. We pretty much want exactly this like kind of nice coverage, not like full coverage, but like everywhere's got like some amount of it, right? Like there's a hint of it all over the place, which is what we want, right? Even if it's not fully like everything is 100% painted and covered, right? Like, so you can see there's some emptiness there in that corner and bits of this tile here, things like that, right? And you can kind of see the variations in the dry brushing still through it because the paint is semi-opaque because it's a contrast paint. There we go. Right, and that'll give us a nice kind of dark kind of tile for the bottom there, which I think is pretty cool. Now I could just probably go get like a darker gray from Walmart and dry brush that. And technically it would probably be cheaper than using this Gravelord gray, but I think that looks really dope, so I'm gonna keep going with it. All right, so after this step, that's pretty much it for our base coats, right? So after that, we're going to actually break out some texture paint, I think. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Because I really have the desire to put like grass and moss and stuff like that on this, right? And to make it like a little overgrown. That really speaks to me. Um, but at the same time, that does lock it in and mean that I really shouldn't use it then for some settings. Like, this probably shouldn't be used in like a icy setting or a deserty setting, right? Like, but honestly, it's usually just going to be under like, you know, North America, like, or Europe kind of temperatures. And if it's a little overgrown, it's perfect for those. And I don't know, something speaks to me about making it overgrown. And obviously, we're not going to be able to do the grasses today because it's going to need its washes first. Um, but I can start putting some of the texture paint down because I want to put a little bit of mud here and there, um, like around. So we can do that today too before I call it. So I did that in the death cube, and I do think it adds a nice bit of life to the colors. And you can see them kind of like eating through this paint pretty quick, unfortunately. But the Army Painter paints are pretty inexpensive. It's $4 um, for a bottle of paint, which isn't terrible. Right, it's actually one of the better prices compared to something like GW, because you'll end up wasting so much paint with their bottle style. Whereas with the Army Painter nice ones, like the Army Painter contrast paints, you get the dropper bottles, so you can really kind of control. You don't really have nearly as much waste. But yeah, I like that floor color a lot. I think that looks cool, and it does make the walls look like stand out more from the ground. And you could actually already see the camera tone is changing already. Now I could set the exposure and stuff manually and kind of avoid the light um, base, right? The problem with light bases, but um, I like to YouTube because it gives me an imaginary friend to talk about my special interests to. I don't like to YouTube because of the filmography stuff. The filmography stuff is actually the part that I have zero interest in. I used to really enjoy doing filmography, like stop animations and stuff when I was a kid, but like, um, I don't know. Just it's a hobby. It doesn't super interest me anymore. You know what I mean? Probably because I think like a lot of people take it so seriously that it kind of kills it a little bit for me. Um, like a lot of the YouTubers you watch, a lot of the very famous ones, at least in wargaming, lots of times they're former film crew of some kind, either feature films or private. So like Midwinter Minis was a wedding photographer, I think, and so was Bill Making Stuff. MS Paint still does like filmography special effects for like the film industry, I think. That's what he does. So yeah, so a lot of the people that get into YouTube miniature painting are, they like that filmography part before um before they even got into YouTube, right? They were kind of drawn to that and interested in it even before that point. Um, but yeah, I like doing YouTube because it gives me an imaginary friend to talk to this stuff about. Because yeah, don't have many people in real life that are interested in this kind of stuff, so it makes it a little hard. Right? Like this is like my element, right? Like I could pretty much sit here and work on this essentially nonstop all day. Um, I think that would kill most of the people I know IRL. But like, if there wasn't dry time, I could 100% have this fully done today. But there does need to be dry time uh, before we get to the next part. Um, Partly because since the process for oil wash runs through evaporation, that means there's contraction. So I don't want it to like pull up the existing paint. And I don't want it to reactivate the existing paint because it is very watery. So the acrylic paint here needs to fully cure before I get into doing the washes on it, since I'm not going to use an acrylic wash. Yeah, I decided I'm not going to use an acrylic wash. I'm going to use the oil wash. I like the oil wash, and this is a fun project to work on it for, right? And I don't need to have this like today, so it can have a couple days to dry. You know what I mean? From the oil wash, because the oil wash they take a time, right? I already talked about the fact that the first part of an oil wash is evaporation, so it needs to be a certain temperature. And the second part of the oil wash is actually curing from UV exposure. That's how the paints work. So it takes a little while. Okay, let's see. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look all around her. Let's see, did we miss anything? Yes, we did. We missed right there. That needs a tiny bit more. Then we'll break out some texture paint. We'll start dabbing that around. All right. Okay, let's see. How's she looking? Yeah, it's looking pretty damn good, to be honest. Hell yeah. And then up on top of that, we got the roof sections, which go like that. So yeah, the roof obviously I'm going to paint separately, but that's actually my last roof section finishing right now. That's what the 3D printer noise was. So yeah, the roof section is going to go like that and be lift offable, so I can put the other terrain on top of it. So it'll end up being like, all right, so let's see. All right, so let's say it's like that, and then we'll end up being able to use different pieces of like regular terrain on the top level, like that, because she's flat. Yeah, that's pretty freaking sweet. To be honest, I don't know if it needs a wash. To be totally honest. Yeah, to be like 100% honest, I don't know if it needs a wash. But I think I'm still gonna give it one, even though I think it looks really cool. I think I'll still give it one. Let's see. This area a little bit better. All right, let's break out some texture paint. I'm gonna show you what my plan is for that. So this is dark mud or Russian mud from Vallejo. I love the Vallejo texture paints. I know everyone's like, oh, you can make your own texture paint. It's so easy. It's a fucking pain in the ass. I think making texture paint is a gigantic pain in the ass. Um, but yeah, so, and for this whole tub, I have done so many miniatures with this tub, and this tub was $15. So for 15 bucks, I will happily support Vallejo to get some texture paint. And yeah, you can kind of see my goal here is to try to like put it around in little like puddles, kind of, and I'm going to put them on pretty thick because what this is going to do is it's going to give me a nice area to put things like grasses and stuff like that. And also just get a different color in here as well. And I'm going to put it a little bit up the walls in some areas. Yeah, just kind of walk around doing just that. And we're just going to have a little bit. We're not going to have too crazy much, right? But even some of the walls here, we'll do it. All right, like this area here that can have some mud as well. And yeah, just going to kind of boop around and just hit different areas that I think makes sense. I like putting it in a lot of the corners. I think the corners look really good with this kind of thing. And you can see it's a darker color mud. So what I might end up doing is I might end up hitting it with a dry brush to pick up some more, maybe like a tan color or something. I did that with the other Death Cube, and it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. But this one is also going to get grass, so maybe I won't do that. But yeah, just kind of going around. This is also a good way for me to fix any errors that are kind of outstanding, or things that I didn't like. Now this texture paint is really nice. I do like it to be pretty lumpy though. So this might end up getting more than one coat, which is fine, but That might just be a thing that happens though. So there might just be more than one coat of this that goes around. I just will re-hit the same areas and give them some more little lump. All right, but you can kind of see it's adding a little bit of brown here and there. It's nice. And each one of the little splats doesn't have to be huge, you know, but it's just gonna add something, and it's gonna give me a nice place to kind of put my grasses and stuff once we get into the grass phase. Which will not be today because this is going to take a while to dry, unfortunately. But yeah, so you're just going to kind of get it up the wall a little bit here and there. You know, fill in some of the little gaps, maybe with some mud, like that. Yeah, pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet, pretty sweet. Let's see, we can get up under her like this too, and we can get in here too. So, other sources of color that will be coming to this. We're going to be doing candles, like I mentioned. I had to figure out. Probably going to 3D print candles and then use green stuff to place them. And then also, it's going to be getting the grasses. So, yeah. All right. Do we want any mud anywhere else? Or are we looking for mud? You don't have to have grass to have mud. You don't have to have mud to have grass. But I'm going to try to put those two areas kind of together. I think that looks neat. It makes it look more overgrown. Yeah, I think she looks pretty damn good. Maybe let's put a little mud down in that far corner there. Because I think that would be a cool area to have like a big grass. Like a big, tall, kind of tuft plant here would be kind of neat, I think. So. There we go. Alright, now do we want it up on the walls in any other spots? Let's see. Let's go ahead and put some grass with mud in there. Go. We'll do the same over here, I think. And then we'll do like that. All right. And then I think we'll do a little over here too. I think we're pretty good to call her there for today. We'll do a nice spin around and see what we got to with our sci-fi or fantasy death cube. We'll see where we got to. All right, let's see. Here, I'll bring it down like that so you guys can really see. Or, okay, like that. No, or you can stop being a dick. one thing. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now we can kind of really see how she's looking. We got the metal bars. We got a whole bunch of mud all over the place. Some more metal bars. You got the darker floor. I'm really happy with how the floor came out. You got the walls. To be totally honest, I don't know if I need to do a wash. I really like how it looks. I legitimately might not do a wash. Alright, I have to think about that, man, because like washes are like my jam. But I think she looks really good. And yeah, you can see some spots I didn't do the lighter gray on, like down there or under here. Because those are just kind of darker spots inherently. And I think it looks better to have less light on the pieces there. Yeah, I'm super happy with that. I think that's pretty freaking sweet. All right, I think that's dope. Let's see, let me grab my mage. Let's see. Yeah, all right, let's see. Got some Ratmen. You always got to have Ratmen in a place like this. Right, this is like the home of Ratmen. I got my Frostgrave Mage, little platypus boy there. Yeah, it's pretty freaking dope. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really happy with that. Yeah, 10 out of 10 on that. I'm super happy with that. I think once this gets some grasses, it's gonna be fantastic. I legitimately might not do a wash on it, and that is such an un-me thing to say. Yeah, that is such an un-me thing to say, but I really like it as it is. I think it looks pretty great. But yeah. All right, I'm gonna call it there. I've been streaming for 2 hours today to get this up to this point. Um, but yeah, I'm super happy with that. 10 out of 10. Ready for some dungeon exploring fun times. All right, calling it there though. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a good one, and as always,